Hey everyone, this is Rachel Gardner, and this is Spiritual Musings of a Popcorn Brain, and we are entering into Season 6. And this is just a step beyond the previous season where we were learning how to hear God speak to us. But this is more about God working in our life, which will definitely involve hearing Him speak to us, but usually that's after the fact. He does something to us, through us, or for us, and often we don't realize until later what He did. So I hope that you are encouraged by these stories and that you will share them with others that you believe can be encouraged by these stories. Hi everyone. So this week I want to start a new season that's similar to what I've been doing, but more in line with how God may be working in your life or may have worked in your life. This is also one of the ways that He talks to us, but usually when we think of things like this, we have a specific example of what He did, even if we didn't recognize at the time that He was talking to us. So I have a friend with me today. This is my friend Dana. Say hello. Hello. Okay. And she is going to share a story. She has a wonderful story of how God worked in her life to help her to overcome alcoholism.
Thank you so much for having me on, Rachel. I really feel privileged and honored that you even asked me. So thank you for wanting to hear my story even. So I'll just get right into it. So when really quick, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I was, what I did, and how I am now. Before, when I was younger. Now, really quick, I want to be very open about the fact that when I tell you about my upbringing, I'm not saying that that's why I became an alcoholic. I have a very good friend who she lived in a home where her parents were alcoholic, and I mean horrible situations, suicidal tendency by the parents, and then even like death threats by them towards her, horrible home life. And this girl did not grow up to be an alcoholic. Okay, she did not grow up to be an addict. She grew up to be a normal person. Okay. So when I tell you guys a little bit about me, that is all I'm doing. I am not saying that this is why I became an alcoholic. I don't know why I became an alcoholic. I will say that there is a genetic component to it. And 3 out of 4 of my grandparents had alcoholism.
Wow.
My parents did not have alcoholism. They divorced when I was very young. I was 4. And I have vague memories of them being together, but I basically was raised by a single mom. I will say that I want to really bold type that word. I feel, that doesn't mean it's true, but I feel like I was brought up by parents who kind of just had kids because they thought they had to have kids. And they were very consumed with their own self, what was going on. They themselves had horrible upbringings. I have to say, honestly, worse than my upbringings. My mom and my dad provided for me better than they themselves were provided for, which is another part of the spiritual process that I went through to overcome my alcoholism, was recognizing that I'm not the center of everything. And that when I took myself out of the center of the situation, I could see how why other people did what they did. And everything wasn't so personal, right? And then also I could remove myself from a situation and not even be affected by it, even though that action was geared towards me. So in my opinion, that's next level stuff, man. That's like a higher way of thinking. So anyway, I had an upbringing where I was I was an overachiever. I wanted attention. I wanted my parents to love me. And that my parents didn't know a bad kid. There's a couple times when I had a hiccup and I got in trouble, but like, whoa, were they thrown for a loop, because my parents really didn't know. Even my sister, who's a lot older than me, they don't know bad kids. But I will say that I didn't start drinking till I was around 19, 20. I was in college for a little longer than maybe I should have been. Nobody drinks normal in college. But growing up, I was very involved in athletics and academics. All my friends were the right kind of people. But I will say, and I love to I have to mention this about my story. I was around 13 and 14, and I was anorexic. And I did not even know that that was a word or a disease. All I knew was that I was in a very chaotic home where I was not able to have any kind of stability. And so I feel that I used food as something to control. And I would not start drinking until I was around, I think my first boyfriend I tried a beer, didn't like it. And then a year later, I tried it again. I was in college, and it didn't start off being problem drinking. Everyone in college binge drinks. It's not weird. Everyone makes stupid choices and makes mistakes. It wasn't until I graduated from college and moved up out of College Station that I started seeing my friends like get promotions and get engaged, and I was going to baby showers, and here I am. I can get a really good job because I can sell myself really well, but I can't keep it because I'm showing up late. The drinking isn't slowing down. It's actually revving up. I'm actually doing it by myself now at home. And it got ugly. I started, even the friends who did drink and who were a bit of a riffraff, were like, whoa, Dana's drinking tonight. We're not going to call her or let her answer the phone when she calls. Right. And so I'm starting to get more and more isolated. The people in my life that love me very much are starting to have to not accept my phone calls because it's always tragedy. It's always something, and it's always about me. And when, one day I spent 3 days in a binge, and I never drank hard liquor. I was one of those malnutritioned alcoholics where I was very underweight. My hair was falling out. Old fashioned 1930s alcoholic. And, I remember in the 3-day binge, I was drinking this horrible Carlo Rossi wine because it's all I could afford. And I was throwing up. It was making me ill. And I saw blood. And so in that moment, after years, and mind you, I would probably say from 21, I would not know basically a sober day for a decade. Because my sobriety date is 5/15/2010.
Okay.
So from my 21 to 31 year, it was a big blur, lots of blackouts, lots of sickness, lots of wrecks. I'm very grateful that I never hurt anybody while I was driving because I did do that. Yeah. But I remembered my mom went to a church, and I remembered if anybody, I believed in God. And I was a born again Christian. I had been baptized and everything. But I just felt like he didn't want to have anything to do with me. I had the guilt of what I was doing because I know the truth of Jesus. Like I knew Jesus. I know the truth of Jesus. Right. But for whatever reason, his power, I was blocked from his power. Or his relief, or for whatever, and I'll touch base on that in just a minute.
Sure.
So I called the pastor of my church that my mom went to, and I was like, listen, I don't want you to think this is a suicide call. I'm not going to kill myself, but I'm in such a morass of self-pity that I want to go to sleep and not wake up. And I can't stop drinking.
Right.
And whether I'm drinking or not, I am miserable. So that fact alone proves that the problem is not alcohol.
Right.
So he got me hooked up with an organization, and in that organization, you find a mentor that helps you go through these different phases. And the first one is knowing what your problem is. And my problem is that I have a mind and body that doesn't react to alcohol correctly. I have a physical allergy and a mental obsession. And once I realized that gives me no choice, I was very hopeless. Everyone talks about their rock bottom, like, oh, I was rock bottom, I was homeless. No, you can be homeless for a year and it's okay. Okay, knuckleheads like me. Like, okay, rock bottom is the day that you realize you actually don't have control over this, and you're gonna have to seek a higher power than yourself.
Right.
And so the phase one with my mentor was that I had to really understand what I had. And the phase two was recognizing that there's no human power that can relieve me of this. It's going to be a power bigger than myself. And
the only real one is Jesus.
Right. No, and I agree. And so that was awesome, right? Because the phase one is the problem. The phase two is the solution, which I'm really glad that they presented that right away. But then phase three was I was going to have to turn my life and my will over to the care of God as I understood him. Well, for me, that was like, I don't know what that means. And you have to dumb it down for me. And my mentor did. And she was like, just follow my directions through the rest of the spiritual process. Yeah. And the rest of the spiritual process was about pinpointing the things in my life that were blocking me from the power of the sunlight of the Spirit of Jesus. And it didn't make sense at the time that this was relieving me of my alcoholism. But when you think about it, everyone, I think like there's a $6 billion industry of treatment centers that want to say it's triggers, it's this location, it's these kind of people, it's, these circumstances. When my trigger was being awake. The problem resides in us. If you are a true alcoholic like me, the problem is in you, inside of you. And so is the solution if you choose to go that way.
Right.
So phase three is basically going through the rest of the directions of the spiritual process. And you're basically in that prayer, you're saying, I'm done with my way. And I'm okay if I never have my way again. And you have to mean it. Because basically I've proven to myself where I get myself, right? Because I've been relying on self-will this whole time.
Right.
And in a nutshell, it was at a crossroads, and I'm saying, I am going to put myself into a different kind of service, and that service is of the highest calling, which is I don't get my will anymore. I have to follow God's will. And if I have to follow God's will, then that means I have to look to him a lot. And I also can't mistreat his creatures.
Right. If you find this podcast encouraging, then please follow or subscribe. And if this specific episode was meaningful to you, please share it with somebody so that they can be encouraged too. And I also want to let you know that I have another podcast where it's just me doing my daily Bible reading from a 1-year Bible. So if you would like to join me in that quiet time each day, then I have the link for that also in the bottom of this episode, and it's called Scripture for Life.